Good morning. Welcome to our Vision Australia webinar titled Loving What You Do on the 12th of May 2020. I am Jason Gibbs and my role at Vision Australia is National Audio Business Development Consultant, and I work within the audio and radio team based in Kooyong, Melbourne. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands in which we meet today and pay my presence to elders past, present and emerging. I'll be here for today as your host for the check-in and chat session, but the real star of the show is the person joining me shortly, and of course, those of you who are in attendance today. Now, please do remember that a recording of the webinar can be accessed later via our webinar our website at visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat. So if you miss anything today, you should be able to grab this entirely in full at a later time. Don't forget to share it later with a friend or a family member if this may benefit them too. Now, we encourage you to submit your own questions at any time across the next 40 minutes or so, which you can do so by using the chat functionality within Zoom. We will answer your questions as best we can and where time permits. I imagine this is going to be very popular today, so do bear with us. Now, for JAWS users, you can access the chat functionality by using the keystroke Alt-H. And of course, we do thank those who have already submitted questions before today's session. It's greatly appreciated. Now I get to introduce you to today's guest. Donna Dyson has specialised as a teacher, educator, academic and prolifically published children's author focusing on pedagogy, early years literacy, literature and the arts. She's also one of our very special Vision Australia ambassadors. Now, at the risk of telling her story for her, I'm going to zip it for now and welcome Donna Dyson. Donna, thank you for joining us today for our check-in and chat session.
It's a pleasure and welcome to everybody, and what a gorgeous day it is. I'm here in Brisbane and the sun is shining, and that's a good reason to smile, isn't it?
No surprises, Donna. I am in Melbourne and the sun isn't shining as much as it is in Brisbane right now. So I'd like to start, Donna, by asking you if you have always had a desire to shape the lives of young people. When did you decide that you wanted to be an educator?
I think I was one of those kids that lined up their teddy bears in their bedroom and taught school as a a play activity. I have always had a heart for children, and specifically the areas of probably 6, 7, 8-year-olds are particularly of interest to me because of the foundation of literacy. I've had a passion for reading, and I love books. I loved picture books when I was a child, and that transference really molded and shaped where I ended up, I suppose, investing my academic time and what I became in my previous life prior to blindness. And although that does transfer and pivot into what I do now and certainly influences, look, that was my heart space, and my teaching years were, I would dare to say, my most important years that I've invested on earth so far.
Can you think back to your favorite book as a child? I'd love to hear it.
Oh, look, there are so many, though I still have my favorite book, and it is a gorgeous quarto-size version of The Night Before Christmas. And it's so beautiful because it's all taped together with masking tape and all sorts through the years, and it has my very early childhood handwriting that this book belongs to Donna in the front of it. And my great joy now is that my husband reads it every Christmas Eve to me, and I just love it. I remember every single image on every single page, and it was a very, very beautiful rendition of that book, and it's still my favorite. And it was certainly influential, as a lot of those early childhood picture books were, because it's written in a poetic form of rhyming couplets, and I adore that. I love rhyme and rhythm, and that certainly influenced me later significantly, which we'll talk about today as well.
Absolutely. Well, Donna, your career has taken a few twists and turns, as you somewhat alluded to there. Not too uncommon for people, I guess. What did those early years of work life look for you?
Look, I was, I suppose, starting off as a teacher, and then and I loved that. I loved teaching so much. I loved what teaching particularly was in my early years, because there was an incredible creative freedom and a beautiful space to be able to enrich lives with deeper contextual learning, which it's a little trickier now because the curriculum is so much more prescriptive. So that creativity offered a great space and scope for me. When I was a young teacher, I was very influenced by the fact that not all children had the same resources available to them, and how was I going to accommodate that in my, not just my pedagogy and my delivery of curriculum, but also how I was going to create a inclusivity within the bounds of what I was expecting of those children. One of the schools that I taught at certainly was very difficult in the context that their home readers would end up in car boot sales and the likes on the weekends. We had community members who would buy those books and the library books and bring them back to the school, bless their hearts. But that created a real challenge for me as an educator in that school. How are these children having home readers, being read to, when the books that we're sending home with them are in fact being sold on the weekends by their parents? And so education and literacy certainly were not valued. How do I contribute to that space? So I started a book radio program called Books Alive, and it was a way that the children could tune in and hear an adult reading to them, and then they would have these scripts of the books. I'd type it all out and put it in their little homework book, and they'd be able to read along basically by a printed A4 piece of paper that was stuck into their books. And that was the way that they were absorbing literature for some of those children. It was a very difficult time because, it was a hard school. And it taught me about the have and the have-nots of what we expect as educators to go home. And even in this social time we are presently, of course, in COVID-19 coronavirus shutdown, the have and the have-nots of expecting every child and every home to have a computer is not a valid assumption, So, even now I have thoughts about how, if I was still in education, how I would manage that. But anyway, those years were very influential in regards to my teaching.
What advice would you give to teachers currently that are losing their vision or have a vision impairment? I mean, it's hard enough for any teacher at the moment with learning, with adapting to the new ways of teaching in the classroom during the COVID-19 pandemic.
For sure. Look, my sight, Jason, went very suddenly. So I had no transition between being weaned off my sight as such, and changes coming. I literally... I was wrapping up my mother's birthday present, and I was tying the bow and realizing in that millisecond that I could no longer even see the bow, that I was only feeling it to tie it. And I'd had an instant stroke. And then 10 months later, they found that I had an inoperable brain tumor. So my sight went very quickly and suddenly. So I didn't have any chance to transfer from one space to another, so to speak. In relation to teachers who might be losing their sight, look, teaching is a very diverse field. And there's many a teacher who believes that their job is in the classroom and that's it. And that's not valid. Teaching is absolutely transferable in many skill set areas and in many other careers. And they are very experienced with social and emotional and psychological kinds of spaces. They make fantastic counselors, and they also are very gifted in curriculum writing, and therefore they're very useful in structuring projects and project managers, because they're actually organizing projects every 30 minutes and with a lot of little people. And for high school teachers, of course, that's transferable as well. So, my advice for starters is that they are very diverse thinkers. They are very lateral thinkers as well, in a context that they can think on their feet very quickly, and they're very great problem solvers. So I'm a great champion of the fact that the teachers have many, many skill sets that are transferable.
It's a really interesting thing, actually, because we all go through our schooling, the education system, and somehow miraculously at the end of our year 12, we have to know what we want to do. And we I don't know, there never seems to be, when I was at school, there never seems to be particular encouragement around the fact that maybe you won't do the same, you won't have the same career path all along, or you won't be doing the same things in 5 years that you think you're going to be doing when you leave. So we're not really encouraged to think that our skills may translate, are we?
Yeah, that's true. And there's a certain era where I suppose in even my parents' kind of day, where you had a job for life, and that's just not, I don't even think it's vaguely possible these days, because even if you went into something like medicine or law, there are sort of traditional fields where, for example, you might diversify in the area that you might serve. So you might start in pediatrics and end up in geriatrics. There's or oncology, or you might change fields and diversify. I believe that in this current terminology of schooling and how we're educating, we have been for nearly 20 years educating children for jobs that aren't invented yet, and that in itself is a challenge. So we have to create diverse creative thinkers, and within schools we encourage children to think of multiple ways that they can create their talents and their gifts to the workforce. And I'm a great believer and advocate of multiple intelligences and discerning which of those intelligences are the ones that make up each individual. So there's social, emotional, there's physical, there's language, there's people who are brilliant communicators, and there are people with an environmental intelligence, and they become the rangers, or they become the Australian zoo folk. There's horses for courses, and it's up to educators to discern where those kids are on that spectrum, and encouraging them to follow not only those gifts and talents, but then to choose subjects wisely that can diversify into fields that they just are naturally gifted and have an affinity, to be able to excel at.
I guess we've all maybe got two parts to the question. What is it that we love? What is it that we would love to do? And what will that be in 5 years' time? Because what we might strive to do right now might be a completely different thing in 5 years' time, and that's okay.
That's okay too. And, learning to unlearn is a really critical part of contemporary society, because technology demands us to unlearn something and relearn it. And I've just upgraded my phone, and that's a typical skill set. We have to unlearn how the last one worked and relearn how the new one works. We are faced with these challenges each day in our everyday existence, but it's certainly valid in the context of career choices as well. And finding something that you love, Jason, is truly the secret. There was this old line of find something you love and work out a way to make money from it. Now, I'm not too sure if that's distinctively valid in regards to some career choices, because some things that you love just are a service area, or they're a passion for you, and if you try to make money from it, you might lose that passion for it. And you have to create some kind of balance in relation to working out which things are your passions and your treasured hobby, your time spaces fillers, the time that you want to spend to relax and to tune off and enjoy those things, and what things are in fact commercial and that you could actually fulfill and it would be rewarding as a career. So these are two areas that one must discern before one walks forward. Yeah, with their choices.
Might be questions that Brendan's asked himself. He said he's currently studying Bachelor of Music, striving to become a music therapist, a diverse field. Great work, Brendan. That sounds like it's going to be a very rewarding career path.
Absolutely excellent. And that is a long study too, a Bachelor of Music first, and then they have postgrad of music therapy. And, look, hospitals and aged cares, there's so many places that need to embrace music therapists, because that is it's a long qualification these days. And Brendan, I applaud you, because it's a really worthwhile space to go forward in. And also, I'm just going to flag with music. We haven't talked about music yet, but Brendan, you're being very wise, because there isn't much money to be made in music, and to be able to create a space that then has a salary and a career around it is a very wise move. So well done.
Okay, and some wise words from Joan that says, I now look at what I can do rather than what I can't, but sometimes I have to rage first. Donna, how do you and listeners handle this? That's a great question.
That's very quick. I just missed the last bit of that, Jason, but just read the question out again, please.
So how do you work through that when you're feeling like that as well? So Joan suggested looking at the positive, I guess, rather than negative, but she needs to get beyond that frustration first. How do you?
Right. Okay. Sorry, the rage first. I missed the word. That's great. Okay. And it was Joan, was it? Joan.
Joan.
Hi. Well, look. You're very look, you're absolutely right in relation to noting the frustration. When we learn something new or when we decide to change our way, we have to have a little, I refuse to have any kind of pity party. And there is time, though, where it's fair to say that you must grieve what you're losing. And I lost my entire career in some ways. I wasn't just a teacher. I then went into doing education leadership, and then I was a university lecturer and course coordinator at the university, teaching teachers how to teach. So my whole world was in education, and I lost all of that. And the grief is, there was bucket loads of grief. I'd be absolutely denying the truth if I didn't say that some of those days were pretty bad. However, look, there are so many things that make up you, that are not your work. That, your identity is not just your work, it's your heart space. And what's really, really important is to find the thing that sparks your heart. And there's a beautiful country singer called Amber Lawrence, who I just adore. And I've recently had these beautiful conversations with Amber, and she has this album called Spark. And that word is really important. It's become really important to me. You have to spark joy in your life. And when you find yourself, having a little flutter of a heartbeat about a new activity or a new possibility, that's the spark. And it's like a little light that switches on, and that's what you should follow, because that's your heartbeat. And everyone's heartbeat beats to a different drum. So, what sparks you joy will not be for someone else, but you have to follow those little glimmer flickers of hope and of light, and the sparks. They're your answers.
Thanks, Joan. Message from Brendan. I studied Bachelor of Counselling first 2 years out of high school, and after an experience volunteering as a counsellor at a summer camp for the blind, my mindset and realisation of what my true passions are changed. Hence, I'm now studying a Bachelor of Music. Another one. Interesting to see for me how this relates. So that's a great example of, I guess, jumping out the gate and thinking about what you want to be doing with your time, and then having a mind shift change and then going with it, which is great.
Yeah, and look, I started in nursing before I did education. I didn't actually start in education, and that was because my marks were pretty high, and we were working out whether or not, was medicine actually something that was for me. It was absolutely not for me. I really wanted to do teaching, and I jolly well waited until, back in our day, you could go in as a mature age student at a certain age. It was like 23 or something. So I actually waited to then and went into education. I knew in my heart what was beating it. And like Brendan is saying, he's found that as well. I have many friends who are actually music therapists, and it's a very satisfying job, and you are going to invest your talent, skill and heart into people's lives, and you're going to make a big difference, Brendan. People you may not know you have affected, you're going to find that you have, in many wonderful positive ways. So congratulations for that.
It warms my heart to see how many questions are coming through, but we're hopefully going to have a listen to some of your songs today. It might be a good point to start off with a listen to Say Hello. Do you want to set this song up for us, Donna? What's it all about?
Okay, so because of my passion for early childhood, we've spoken about teaching, and we've spoken about me being going blind suddenly, and then I went into music. So it's sort of, we're starting right at the end. We're starting the most recent of times, because I've been signed to MGM for 2 labels, and one of them is Spotty Kites, and that's my children's label. It's available on all platforms, all streaming platforms, and downloads as well. And this song is Say Hello. Now, a beautiful colleague of mine, Craig Alistair Young, and I collaborate on lots of songs, and this particular one was written for a musical, and so it was performed at the Queensland Symphony Orchestra in their children's concerts, and then we decided to record it for Spotty Kites. Now, this song is important to me because I wrote the lyrics on this song. It's a very, very important song, because being blind, it occurred to me that people don't always know how to communicate with us. They want to. It's not that they're being rude. They just don't want to make the first move. It's political correctness in its highest form, and we all experience this. So this song is to encourage children to say hello and to be polite and to speak up and to just build a little confidence. But it's a little heart space. Those chorus lines are also a gift to the blind community, because we need to say hello. We need to listen with our ears left and right and also behind, and say hello to the people around us and give them the opportunity to communicate with us.
All right, well, we're going to have a little listen to some of this song now, a little to start off our own music therapy session. Here we go. Warming up, here we go.
Hello. When you're feeling all alone and going somewhere new, you don't have a single friend and don't know what to do. Your new friend is somewhere near, you simply have to find. Look to the left, look to the right, and also look behind. Say hello. Hello. Say hello. Hello. Wave your hand to someone new and say hello. Hello. Say good day. Good day. That's the way. Good day. You'll be friends before you know it. Say good day. Good day. Say hello. Say hello. Hello. And you'll have a brand new friend before you know. Hello. Simply say hello every day. Hello. Say good day. That's the way. Say hello. Say hello.
That can translate to adults and children, can't it, Donna? And
Absolutely.
how we put our, best foot forward and get started with a conversation.
Absolutely. And we're all a little hesitant, when we walk into a room. And, I have pretty high communication skills, but I just can't stand going to some functions. And so, even though I wrote it, I have to put some of my own advice into action and walk on up and say hello. And that's, it takes courage and bravery sometimes just to get in the cab and go out. Yeah. So I think that, turning up, and there's a beautiful expression of dressing up and turning up and, making sure that you are participating in society. It's a hard step, but every little step and every little day and every person we meet makes that journey a little easier. So, just get up, dress up and turn up.
Well, you seem to be, quite a confident person. I guess that confidence, confidence isn't always there, is it? We have our moments as individuals where we can be quite confident in some situations. Other times we can be a little bit more reserved, and that's okay, isn't it?
Absolutely. Look, it is. And, when you're teaching, it's an interesting space because education is all about service, and it's about your heart for someone else and trying to give them the most wonderful opportunities with a time span of education, of social emotional support, of academic growth, and creating a society and a community around that space for a person. So that's my heart space. That's where I've come from. And there is a certain amount of, there's an enormous amount of love that is tying all of that up with a ribbon. When you're going into something like music, for me, there's a different space, there's a different attitude, and it's much more singular focused. Yeah. So there's a lot of the words me and I that are contributed into those kind of spaces. I have only ever worked with, words like, the college or the school or we as a community or we as educators. I've really struggled moving into that space, and my confidence has been, jarred at times because it's not something. I created Spotty Kites because it's not Donna Dyson, it's Spotty Kites, and it goes back into that community. There is a community that create that music, and although I own the label and own the company, it's still it is a community, and my confidence is because I have the hearts and the hands of gorgeous people, like-minded people who want to do the best for children, all working together. So the confidence level is always about who you surround yourself with, yeah, and who you listen to. And sometimes the voices in your head are not the ones to be listening to if they're not telling you, to get up, dress up and turn up. Sometimes it's someone else that will help you, and yeah, that's really, really important.
So
I have,
if we go
yeah,
back to 2012, when you did start to lose your
sure.
sight, there must have been some really challenging times there for you. How did those moments shape you as a person today?
Yeah, Jason, that's an incredible question, actually. I think it's fair to say that my world was rocked, and I was in a complete and utter state of disbelief. Vision Australia were really, really important. In that very first week of losing my sight, I fell down my front stairs and broke a couple of ribs. And so the mobility issue was raised as a priority with the doctors and sent me through to Vision Australia. I had my mobility officer. Now, I think that, I was grief stricken. I was very aware that this could be long term. It could be short term. I didn't know, was my sight going to come back? We weren't sure. 10 months later, when I found out that it was an inoperable brain tumor and that it wasn't going to come back, was another wave of grief. It was just like this tsunami that at first came, and then I received this other tsunami, in the October. So I lost my sight in the February. In the January the 12th, 2012. The grief that came with it and the learning, I do have a pretty strong, I suppose, basket full of resilience in my personality. I had suffered with a lung disease in my 20s, and to be able to endure that, I had to learn resilience, and I had to learn about doing what you could do even if you were really, really sick. So that really stood me instead in preparation for what came. When my sight loss that first year was literally survival, and I'm interviewed all the time about in relation to the music and how fast my music has sort of created to where it is now. The first year was a write-off. I was grief stricken. It would be an understatement to say that there were not times of serious darkness, literally, emotionally. And my hope was really restricted. In the October, when I was diagnosed with my inoperable brain tumor, I met an oncologist who was very important to my journey. And there were two things that were really important to my journey. My mobility officer has to be noted first. My mobility officer taught me that I was not disabled, that I was only disabled if I did not pick up that cane. And if I picked up the cane, I was enabled. That's changed a switch in my head. I picked up that cane and rocked it. I was damn determined I was going to learn how to use it, and that it was going to survive me to be mobile again. And if I was mobile, I'd perhaps be able to get back into my world again, because blindness is very isolating, isn't it? Where it's very easy to stay at home. It's very easy not to get on a bus or to, be in the community. It's very, very difficult. You have to be very brave. And anyone who gets up every morning and takes a step outside their house, I applaud them, because it's bravery. There are chances we'll trip. There are chances things will happen to it. It's bravery. It takes guts every single day to do it. Yeah. In the October, my oncologist then stepped in and said to me, I want to give you the most important word that I can, and that is the word of hope. And hope stands for hold on, pain ends. And my pain was the grief of losing my whole career. It was much more important to me, which may not ring with other people, but losing my career and my identity within education was my whole life. And I'm very happily married. My home life is wonderful. I'm very blessed. But my world of work was very, very important to me. It was my calling, it was my vocation, and it was my grief point. And he said to me that, this chance to hold on, because pain will end. I will find a way to transfer my life back to something meaningful again. And I held on to that. I held on to it like a life rope. And by the grace of God, honestly, time is a gift, and it started to reveal the next step. And like we were talking about sparks before, every time I heard music, there were sparks. They were like lightning bolts of sparks. And I knew that was something that I needed to follow and consider as my future.
This might be a great time to go into your second song that you've chosen today. Is It Possible?
Is it possible? That was the question I asked when I considered doing music. Is it possible? Have a listen.
All right, here we go. We're going to have a listen to another bit of a grab and setting it up for you. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Everything is possible. Close your eyes and see. If we dare to dream a dream, imagine what could be. Is it possible to grow up to be all the special things that make me me? All the things I dreamed can all come true. It's possible for me and you. Yes, it's possible for me and you.
Lovely. We're getting lots of questions through, so we better try and get through some of them. Great question here. What are the cited skills that have translated best to a life with vision impairment for you, Donna?
What are the cited skills was the question?
Skills, some of the skills that you had prior to going blind, and
Yeah.
how have they, translated?
Okay. Yeah, it's a tricky one. As an educator, you need to listen. You need to listen to your colleagues, you need to listen to the parents, and you certainly need to listen to the children. There's a aspect of life called emotional intelligence where we pick up on that gut feeling, that inference, that intuition. I think that I'm going to just address this way. The thing about being blind is that for many of us, not all of us, I'm very aware and sensitive to the blind deaf community. Our ears are phenomenal. And it's a gift to have hearing. It's a gift to actually listen, because we live in a time and a space where life is fast and people are rushed, and we don't always stop to listen, and others don't stop to listen to us. What we can contribute greatly into society are our ears, our compassion and our sincerity of time to listen, and the investment of giving somebody the space to speak and to be there for them in regards to, just giving a bit of heart space and a bit of encouragement and a bit of support. You don't need your eyes for that. You need your ears and you need your heart. And I believe that for those who fall into the blind community bracket of able to hear, they certainly have an incredibly large investment to contribute to society through their hearing and through their interpretation of what people are saying, and to give these people time and to build community by just being supportive. It's an incredible gift.
There's certainly a lot of people in the world today making a lot of noise, and maybe if just some of us were listening, actively listening a little bit more, maybe we'd be a bit more productive as a society.
Yeah, true. That's true.
Great question here. And relating to employment, and you obviously went through some tough times there trying to find your feet and figure out what your work life would be after 2012. The question is, how do you think AI and robotics will affect employment for visually impaired and blind folk?
Right. Okay. Well, look, this is part of, in my experience of training kids for jobs that weren't invented yet, right? So we need to be creative. We need to be incredibly design focused of the possibility. Like, it goes back to that song, is it possible? Everything is possible. We need brave thinkers. We need brave creators. We need brave designers and engineers. And we need brave medical teams to implement and trial. I think that, look, goodness, it's an understatement to say that Siri saved my life. And in that moment when I lost my sight, in that millisecond, and because I was a nurse, I knew pretty well what possibly had just happened. And a stroke can take your life. So I called Siri to call, I have a very very close friend who is a nuclear neurophysician, and I was able to call him and say, this has just happened. He called the ambulance. They were, bells and whistles and turning up within minutes. Suri saved my life. That is intelligence of being able to call out to a phone, to make a phone call. That is phenomenal. In that moment, I knew I couldn't use a phone book or my address contacts or anything. I didn't know how to use JAWS or anything. It was just that split second. I think there's much more of that. And the fact that we've got bionic eyes coming, and the fact that we've got, incredible minds who have worked on apps for us. And, our life is so much better than 100 years ago or 50 years ago or even 20 years ago. We are living in, it's a pretty okay time to be blind compared to them. And we must celebrate these positive things too. We must embrace them. We must be grateful for them, and I think we must move forward embracing them and having a go and participating in what the opportunities they offer.
Absolutely. Courtney, our special helper in the background today, has also followed up with saying that David Woodbridge is a special guest on Coding and Gaming on the 23rd of June at 11 a.m. for one of our next check-in and chat sessions. So keep that in mind. That'll be a fascinating conversation. visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat to find out more. Hello to Brendan, that's also said he's following, Benjamin, my apologies, Benjamin. Following my music passion too and learning audio engineering. Brendan, get in touch with us. I'd love to hear some more about that. And, Vision Australia radios across the country, we're always looking for volunteers to help out with audio production. So that might be something you're interested in. If it is, you can email us at var-melbourne@visionaustralia.org. If you do miss that again, just get in touch with us at VA via the regular channels, and we'd love to connect with you. Rosemary has also said their 4-year-old son loves music therapy, and they do too as the parents, and they're involved in the session today. Thank you very much, Rosemary.
And Rosemary, I'll just flag in there for you that all of Spotty Kite's songs are hitting that age group. So I really wanted to, I'm signed to MGM, and I really wanted to start the label for where the wiggle stopped. So we would start. However, we've worked out that through my music therapist friends who have said there's a little song called High and Low, and it's really about the octave of the music scale. But this little person, Audrey, who's about one and a half, she thinks it's about, reaching up high and touching her toes, and her waist is in between, and does a little dance to it. So really our songs stretch from birth all the way through to 8-year-olds in particular. So I hope that you can connect and enjoy Spotty Kite's work with your little one and your music therapist.
Donna, let's jump to More Than a Symphony. We're running out of time. We've got lots to get to.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. More Than a Symphony is, look, it just speaks to the fact that every one of us has something inside us. We can hear that drum beat for the thing that we're interested in. And it might be sport, it might be robotics, it might be audio engineering, it might be music therapy like we've been hearing today.
All right,
your special gift and talent.
Here we go.
There's a song within your heart that speaks of hope, a brand new start, a song in you of all that's true. You can stand and rise above, lifted up on wings of love. You'll find your feet and sing again. 'Cause you carry on. You are the words, you are the song. Can you hear the music that's inside you? A choir full of hope that sings within you. You have what it takes to be. There's more than a symphony in you.
Lovely stuff there. Quick note for Doug that's messaged in through the chat on Zoom to say, I'm hoping to discover technology that will help me continue to be able to read books. The print of large print is nowhere large enough. Get in touch with Vision Australia, Doug. There's always a solution for things like this. And you can contact us via our national call centre, 1300 8474 666. Of course, email info@visionaustralia.org if you feel more comfortable about that. Of course, we've got our Vision Australia library. You can listen to lots and lots of titles there. I think we upload about 200 different books a week. And of course, you can book an appointment with a VA assistive technology specialist. So something to keep in mind. Lots of questions coming through. Janelle wanted to ask if that was you singing in one of the earlier songs. So I'm assuming that was relating to Is It Possible?
Right. Well, probably would be Say Hello. So Say Hello is
Sorry.
Ashley Fleming, and she's from the Seven Sopranos. She's a beautiful young girl. We have session. I am singers for all of my work. I sing on a couple of tracks, but most I'm a mezzo soprano, and I love choral work with choirs. But look, I'm very I don't know, a bit of a perfectionist, I suppose. And so it has to be the right voice for the right track. The second one was a beautiful guy called Simon Watson with Is It Possible? And then the third one was David Willisdorf singing the symphony.
Thanks for that. Lots of questions coming through. It's been very popular today. Thanks, everyone. And we'll try and get to as many as we can before we wrap up and say the next 10 or 15 minutes. Cheryl, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Who says, I am doing a grad dip in counselling and doing placement at a secondary school. I'm wondering how you felt with self-doubt and others who doubted your ability to perform the job as well as anyone else. Great question.
So the person who asked the question, was that Cheryl? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Cheryl. Look, good on you. Absolutely. You step forward and you go with confidence and you show them how it's done. Yeah. You will have adaptive technology, no doubt, and you can be role modeling that. And what also this is going to do is to help us, it's going to show hope to teachers and parents, the fact that you are living proof that if their child is struggling with something, that they too will find their space. You know, you can't allow the doubters to doubt. As Taylor Swift says, the haters are going to hate, right? And so you really need to make sure that you are role modeling. You are cutting that pathway. You are breaking new ground in walking forward with your gifts and talents and strengths. You have your ears and you have your heart, and that is ultimately, apart from the intelligence that is needed for counselling, they are your strongest gifts, and you will have them in greater supply because your ears pick up so much, as we know with our blindness. And I think that, you know, there is this beautiful expression of, you know, you close your eyes to see. Well, sometimes we see so much more. And that's I think it's a fantastic profession to be going into. And look, you know, celebrate going into a school. It's fantastic.
Another question here from one of our participants who says, I use my computer with the assistance of JAWS and magnification software. I have a passion in digital media and arts, which includes music, making videos, and a desire in being involved in the video game industry, which is fascinating. Is it possible to pursue that career path? I used to work in hospitality, the hospitality sector before I lost my sight. Love the gaming question. I'd love to find that out myself. It's a very diverse career, the gaming industry, and there's an incredible local gaming. The gaming industry in Melbourne, especially, I think, is quite big. So it's certainly one to look into, I think. Donna.
And absolutely, getting a mentor to you know, show you the ropes and to start investigating whether or not that is possible. And look, it will be such a broad space that there's no way that one part of it isn't possible, and then that could be your niche. So, you know, absolutely jump in, dive in the pool and find your lap that suits you. Yeah.
Sounds great. There's again, if you want to send an email to us, var-melbourne@visionaustralia.org and retell that question, because I think I might know someone that would be interested in reaching out to you. So maybe I can connect you. I do know a presenter of a gaming program on community radio in Melbourne. So hopefully I can help out there myself. Can we have a look at the next song now, Donna? We're going to have a listen to Rising, aren't we? Can you set that up for us and tell us a little about it? What's the idea behind this song?
Well, Rising is actually a celebration of people who are kind of the uncheered heroes of society. So in our contemporary time of the coronavirus, for example, they are the people who are doing the research for the vaccines, or they're the people who are serving without the cheers every Thursday night in the UK, you know, the health workers that are getting cheered on. There are many professions like that, but I liken this to the blind community in the context that, you know, we have to get up every morning. It's the whole get up, dress up, show up, and it's one step in front of the other. And how do you climb the mountain? Well, you step one step in front of the other at a time until you are at the top and you have risen like cream on the glass of milk to the top, and then it's time to celebrate. So enjoy the song.
Excellent. Here we go, Rising.
Know you're a person who cares long after you won. You are the one who keeps searching when daylight is done. I know you're the one who keeps trying against every odds. Yours are the footprints that others dream to step on. I know you got hope in your heart that won't let you quit. I know when the battle gets rough, you'll face every hit. I know you've got miles up ahead with roads to run. And I know when the challenge is tough, you'll be climbing every mountain, you'll be chasing every star, fighting for tomorrow like the hero that you are. Holding every moment through the sweat and every tear, and through it all, you will be rising, 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 rising up, rising, rising up.
It's hard not to feel inspired with a banger like that, Donna. Thank you.
It gets bigger, that song too. So you've just heard, that's Damien Leith's voice. Now Damien won the second series of Australian Idol in straight after Guy Sebastian, and both of those guys are absolutely beautiful guys. And I have the pleasure, especially to call Damien a very, very close friend and co-writer. So yeah, where he does a smashing voice on that as well.
Thank you, Jeannie. Jeannie or Jenny, I apologise on pronunciation there. It's become a recruitment drive for Vision Australia Radio. So thanks for your message, Jeannie. You can check out varadio.org. It's probably the best way to find out more. And we are a volunteer-based radio network across SA, WA, Vic, Albury, and now beaming into Darwin on digital radio. So if you'd like to be involved, that's a great point to get in touch at varadio.org. Everyone's being incredibly inspired today, Donna. This has been an absolute amazing session. I'm still trying to get through so many questions, and I do apologise if we haven't been able to read them all out now. Brian has said, great story, Donna. I share tips how I live as a blind person on local community Facebook pages. That's great. I mean, everyone's doing their bit, aren't they, Donna?
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, for our friend who was asking about going into the school as a counsellor in her studies, you know, that Rising song really fits for her, because it's about, you know, it's showing how it's going to be done, and, you know, just being bold and turning up and doing that. And we all have you know, we're put on earth for a purpose, and that purpose is to somehow contribute what our gifts and talents are. And it might be the quietest, most humblest little thing in the world, but it means an enormous amount to someone. And I always have said, as an educator, I've always said that, you know, if I change one life at a time in education, not necessarily a classroom or a school or a university, you know, it's one person at a time. And if you just have one kind word to one person, it might, you know, you may not know, but their day may have been the loneliest, you know, and you have brightened it up just because you stopped and you did say hello. Like, it's that simple.
Sometimes for people, we stumble into doing the things that we love, don't we? So in a way, when you really try to find what it is that your calling is, sometimes there's too much noise around you to be able to figure that out. So I guess sometimes it's just about taking a deep breath and mixing with different people and doing something a little bit out of your comfort zone and seeing if it's going to work in your favor.
Yeah, and I think look, the message that I really want to encourage people today is not only just to have a go, but also and to follow their heart, but it's also how can you help someone else? That is the secret of society. How can you cheer someone else up? How can you work to serve somebody else? What can you do for somebody else? It might be a phone call, or it could be something that you're really crazy gifted in. You can sort out some computer problem for someone else. Like, gosh, I need someone to do that for me all the time. But the point is that, we all have abilities, and each of you have something very unique that is just sincerely yours. And you may not think it's the most important or the most large grand scale thing, but we all have a spirit inside us that indeed, is there for a reason, and it's there to cheer someone else up and to help someone else's day.
Speaking of that spirit inside of us, and great setup there, Donna, we will be having a listen to Spirit of Australia. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about this song, and we might actually have to move things around a bit and finish up on that so people can listen to it as they log off from our session, because we are running out of time. But do let us know, what is Spirit of Australia about? Tell us about this song. Spirit
of Australia is encapsulating the fact that we all we have this inner heartbeat that unifies us rather than the things that divide us. So this is a song completely of unity. It's a song of complete inclusion, and it's a song of complete love for country. And you are, every one of us sitting here, we are all the heartbeats and we are all the spirits of Australia. And together we make a pretty fine country. I hope that you love this song. This song was the Australian Song of the Year in 2016, awarding myself and Damien as the Australian Songwriters of the Year. And I wrote it on the back of a napkin on a Qantas flight. And I looked out the window and the plane next to me was called Spirit of Australia. And I thought, that's good enough for a song. Let's go.
Absolutely. Donna, we will get to that song in just a minute, but can you please recap some of those contact points? So your website and, of course, how people can find out about your music.
Sure. So I suppose my website is pretty simple. It's just www.donnadyson.com. And then we have the Spotty Kites website, which is www.spottykites.com. And that's spotty as in spot, Spotty Kites, plural. And then, of course, there's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all of the streaming platforms. And what really helps the most is for you to simply press that subscribe or like button. I'm not here hunting for that, hunting for numbers, but it means that you'll get alerts for when the new songs come out, and they come out every few weeks. I work really, really, really hard. And, the reason that I do it is so that I leave this incredible legacy of music, and it will help people, I hope. Yeah.
Well, Donna, thanks again for your time today. I'm sure this discussion has inspired people to put their best foot forward and to pursue what they love. Now, do remember, you can relive this session and others which have already taken place by visiting visionaustralia.org/check-in and chat, and learn, of course, of upcoming sessions in the Check-in and Chat series. There you can also learn now, TeleLink, telehealth, for those that aren't aware or need a bit of a reminder, it's a new and safe way to use technology to conduct your appointments with a Vision Australia service provider, including the benefits of easy and convenient access to services in your home. It's safe. You can invite friends and family to be involved using technology. And of course, it's lower costs because you pay, if you have an NDIS package, you will only be charged for the service. There's no travel costs involved. You can book your telehealth session now by calling 1300 84 7466, or of course email info@visionaustralia.org. That reminder again about telehealth not being available currently to residents in South Australia, but if that does change, you will of course be notified thoroughly. let's have a listen to Spirit of Australia. I hope you can stick around for a few minutes and listen, but you're welcome to leave the webinar at your will. Again, Donna, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who submitted some wonderful questions today. And of course to Naomi and Courtney working away as busy beavers in the background. We hope you have a wonderful day and week ahead.
We're the spirit of Australia, our ancient far-reached land. We are the spirit of our nation, from the outback desert sand. We are older than our dream time and younger than our reign. We are the spirit of Australia, we're the torchlight and the flame. Come from town and country and the fire-dried stricken plain, where the sunshine lasts forever and we never see the rain. We come from ocean coastlines where it's summer all year round, where the beaches stretch forever and we walk on sacred ground. We are the spirit of Australia. We are the heartbeat and the truth. We are the dreamers under our southern stars. We are the spirit of Australia. Golden coastline beaches and ancient Uluru, from our coral reefs and gum trees to our flying kangaroos. Our country towns and outback and cities bright and bold, the opera house and sporting fields, our land of green and gold. We are the spirit of Australia. We are the heartbeat and the truth. We are the dreamers under our southern stars. We are the spirit of Australia. We are a land of 1,000 faces, United Nations far and wide. And underneath our Southern Cross, we're standing side by side. We are the spirit of Australia. We are the heartbeat and the truth. We are the dreamers under our southern stars. We are the spirit of, we are the spirit of, we are the spirit of Australia.
Vision Australia.
Blindness,
Low vision.
Opportunity.
Vision Australia logo. 3 navy blue ovals linked together diagonally within a bright yellow rectangle.